Hey, what's going on out there? I'm Sean Devine. Today I've got a new video for you all. Don't get discouraged by the title. This is meant to help you. So I want to talk about reasons why your mixes may be suffering, the top reasons why you're probably not pleased with the quality of your mixes, and what you can do to improve really quickly. So first, let me just tell you that when I started out mixing, it was really frustrating. I had to do a lot of experimentation and just trial and error, figuring out what didn't work to get to the point where I was getting the results that I wanted to get in my mixes and in my masters. But I know the feeling of, getting a mix done, taking it into the car, or listening on your friend's speakers and just not being happy with it at all and just feeling like you're not getting that sound you're looking for. So let's go ahead and dive into some reasons why your mixes suck and how you can improve quickly. All right, so the first reason why your mixes may suck is that you just haven't grasped the concept of blending the instrumental tracks and the vocal tracks. You can get the vocals sounding really good, or you can get the instrumentals sounding really good, but the balance between those two and the marriage of those two is just not working for you. And really, the best way that you can improve on this relationship is to listen to a lot of music that you feel is mixed properly and things that you gravitate towards, and study the relationship and the balance between the instrumentation and the vocal. That's going to help you improve very, very quickly just in trying to replicate that relationship. You're not trying to mix it exactly the same way, or making it sound just like it, but studying that relationship, because throughout time there's been a very evident marriage again between the instrumentation and the vocal, and there's a balance. And if that relationship is not balanced correctly, it just doesn't work. So really study that, develop your taste in terms of mixing that, and you're going to be able to apply that in your mixes. All right, so the next one is all too common. I get a lot of sessions from people where you just got too many plugins. You're using way too many plugins on certain instrument tracks or vocal tracks. Sometimes I've seen references with 15 different plugins on the channel, and it looks like they just put them on there because they could. And you don't need to approach your mixing and your effects like that. The less the better. Keep it simple. Focus on the essential processes like EQ, compression, de-essing, those things that are going to give you the core of your sound. Work on that, and try to really limit yourself in terms of the plugins that you're going to put on there, because you don't need a lot of plugins. Most of my mixes, they might be big sessions, they may use a lot of plugins overall, but in terms of the channels themselves, I'm really trying to stay around 5 plugins, 7 plugins max for a chain. Obviously I may use Synths for effects and things, but don't try to impress your friends with all the plugins you're using, because at the end of the day, you really don't need that much to get a professional sound. Speaking of plugins, don't get caught up in this game of chasing to try to get every cool plugin that's released. I always encourage my students to start with the basics. Start with what you have. So if you have stock plugins, really learn those inside and out and focus on the essentials again. And just don't try to overcompensate for your lack of knowledge and experience with plugins. It's just going to get you into trouble. You want to take it a step at a time. Acquire plugins at a pace that you can really learn them, and exactly what you're going for. And that way you're going to be mixing intentionally. You're not just going to be throwing a bunch of plugins at something and hoping that it works. The next reason why your mixes may suck is because you're not comfortable with compression. Compression takes a lot of time and experience to get the hang of. I do have some videos on my channel that'll help you get things rolling. There's a video called Learn Compression in 12 Minutes. You can check that out, which explains a lot of this stuff. But you really need to just focus on the sound of compression, what compression's doing, how it affects your vocals and your instrumentation, especially in hip hop where the vocal needs to kind of sit very upfront in the mix, and the relationship, like we were talking about before, with the instrumentation and the vocal really needs to be right, and compression plays such a vital role in that. So again, just practice compression, experiment, try different ratios, try different settings on your vocal, listen to the vocal outside of your studio, listen to it on a lot of different speakers. experimenting with compression, and you're going to be able to start to hear what it's doing. And that is going to help your mixes tremendously once you get the hang of the way the compression affects your signals. This one is all too common, but it's just dealing with bass. So either you don't have enough low end bass in your mixes, or you have way too much. Now, the reason why this happens is because a lot of people aren't able to hear what's going on in the low end due to the speakers they're monitoring on. It may be because you're in an untreated room that is kind of misinterpreting the bass, or you're misinterpreting the bass because of the way it's being played and reflected off of your room. Then it won't translate well. So you take it into a car, or you take it into another setup outside of the studio, and you really realize, wow, the bass is not right. So you don't want to be on the side of not enough bass, and obviously you don't want too much bass. There's a very fine compromise between that. And again, you've got to be able to hear the bass properly to figure out what's going on. A trick that I usually will do is I go to my master channel and I put an EQ or something where I can monitor only the low end, and I'll just roll everything off until about 120, 150. That's usually where a subwoofer is going to start to engage, and it will play frequencies below that point. So if you do that and you just roll off everything in your mix, you can hear just what's happening there, and that's going to help you monitor the low end a lot better. The final thing that I want to point out today for why your mixes may suck is that your recordings may just not be up to par. You want to make sure that everything is engineered well, that you're getting the right performance, that you're recording the right layers so a mix engineer can use those layers properly. And I always tell students, if you've got a recording that you're not necessarily using the best mic or the best preamp in the world, that's okay. We can still compensate for that in the mixing process. However, there's only so much we can do with a recording that is not done properly. So make sure you study the basics of recording and engineering, signal flow, making sure to get your preamp and your mic set up properly, and that's going to greatly improve your mixes and mix potential. All right, y'all, so those are the reasons I wanted to point out for why your mixes suck, and also some ways that you can improve very quickly. Again, don't get discouraged. It's something that you just have to work on, gain some experience, but focus on the things that we talked about in this video, practice them, study them, and I guarantee you your mixes are going to improve greatly. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. If you learned anything in this video, please like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon.